Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please hit the subscribe, now this start video. The delicate dance of diplomacy has always required a blend of tact, discretion, and strategic silence, particularly when dealing with allies whose rhetoric can be as unpredictable as it is provocative. Sir Keir Starmer's recent actions during Prime Minister's questions, where he chose to commemorate the anniversaries of British military deaths rather than recent losses, was a masterclass in this art. It was a subtle yet powerful rebuke to J.D. Vance's dismissive remarks about the military contributions of America's allies, without ever mentioning the U.S. Vice President by name or engaging in a public spat. This approach underscores the broader challenge facing the UK government: how to maintain a productive relationship with a Trump administration known for its brashness, while also safeguarding national pride and standing up for British interests. The UK's strategy of discretion in the face of Team Trump's often inflammatory rhetoric is not born out of weakness, but rather out of a calculated understanding of the dynamics at play. Engaging in a war of words with a U.S. administration that thrives on controversy and media attention is a losing proposition. Instead, the British government has opted for a more nuanced approach, one that prioritizes behind-the-scenes diplomacy and measured public statements. This was evident in the aftermath of President Zelensky's contentious meeting in Washington, where European leaders took to social media to express their dismay, while Downing Street remained conspicuously silent. Instead, Sir Keir Starmer was on the phone with both President Trump and President Zelensky, working to mend fences and keep the lines of communication open. This approach is not without its critics. Some argue that the UK's reluctance to publicly challenge the Trump administration on issues like Ukraine or NATO commitments risks undermining its moral authority and appearing overly deferential. However, the government's stance is rooted in pragmatism. The UK's relationship with the US is too important to be jeopardized by public spats, particularly when the alternative, quiet, behind-the-scenes diplomacy, can yield more tangible results. By avoiding the temptation to engage in public criticism, the UK maintains its position as a trusted ally and mediator, capable of bridging divides and facilitating dialogue even in the most contentious circumstances. The challenge, however, lies in balancing this pragmatic approach with the need to uphold British values and defend the country's contributions on the global stage. J.D. Vance's comments about the military contributions of America's allies struck a nerve in the UK, not least because they seem to dismiss the sacrifices made by British troops in conflicts over the past few decades. While the government chose not to respond directly, Sir Keir's decision to mark the anniversaries of British military deaths during PMQs was a poignant reminder of the UK's enduring commitment to global security and the price it has paid in blood and treasure. It was a statement in actions, not words, and one that resonated deeply with both the public and the political class. This incident also highlights the broader dilemma facing the UK as it navigates its post-Brexit role on the world stage. With its departure from the EU, the UK has sought to position itself as a global leader, capable of forging strong bilateral relationships and playing a pivotal role in international diplomacy. However, this ambition is complicated by the need to manage relationships with allies whose priorities and rhetoric may not always align with British values or interests. The Trump administration, with its America First ethos and often transactional approach to foreign policy, has been a particularly challenging partner in this regard. The UK's response has been to tread carefully, avoiding public confrontations while working to influence US policy through quiet diplomacy and coalition building. This strategy has its limits, of course. There are moments when silence can be interpreted as complicity, and when the failure to speak out risks undermining the UK's credibility as a defender of democratic values and international norms. The key is to pick those moments carefully, and to ensure that when the UK does choose to make its voice heard, it does so in a way that is both impactful and consistent with its broader diplomatic strategy. Sir Keir's handling of the Vance controversy is a case in point. By choosing to commemorate British military sacrifices, he sent a clear message about the UK's contributions and values without escalating the situation into a public dispute. The broader lesson here is that effective diplomacy often requires a willingness to absorb short-term criticism in pursuit of long-term goals. The UK's approach to dealing with Team Trump may frustrate those who would prefer a more confrontational stance, but it reflects a deeper understanding of the realities of international politics. In a world where alliances are increasingly fluid and the global order is under strain, the ability to maintain relationships with key partners, even difficult ones, is more important than ever. This is not to say that the UK should shy away from defending its interests or values, but rather that it should do so in a way that maximizes its influence and minimizes the risk of unnecessary conflict. Looking ahead, the UK's diplomatic strategy will continue to be tested, particularly as the US presidential election approaches and the possibility of a second Trump term looms. The challenges of managing this relationship will only grow more complex, particularly if the Trump administration continues to adopt a more isolationist and transactional approach to foreign policy. In this context, the UK's emphasis on discretion, pragmatism, and quiet diplomacy will remain essential tools in its diplomatic arsenal. At the same time, the government will need to remain vigilant in defending British interests and values, and in finding creative ways to make its voice heard when it matters most. Ultimately, the UK's approach to dealing with Team Trump is a reflection of its broader foreign policy philosophy, that influence is often best exercised quietly, and that the art of diplomacy lies in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Sir Keir Starmer's subtle but powerful response to J.D. Vance's remarks is a testament to this philosophy, and a reminder that in the complex and often unpredictable world of international politics, actions can speak louder than words. As the UK continues to navigate its post-Brexit future, this approach will remain a cornerstone of its strategy, ensuring that it remains a respected and influential player on the global stage.